Rob's going to have the panel of all panels, and Paul's going to have the innovation panel of all innovation panels. Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you to each of our panelists for that discussion. We were delighted to welcome Young Woo to our roundtable in Toronto. If I remember correctly, I think it was his third day of work, and so we had set our expectations quite low. We let him off the hook, but we're delighted to welcome him back this morning. For those of you who haven't read Young's bio in your program, he's an entrepreneur, a serial investor, and the new CEO of Mars Discovery District. Once again, please ask your questions on Slido, and we'll have some time at the end to have a bit of a conversation with Young Woo. Please join me in welcoming Young Woo.
It's interesting, in preparing for this morning's remarks, I had a major battle with the Mars team that was helping me do this. Do I use technology or do I use paper? And I won. But I did give a nod to the Mars team. I did get backup as well. So if you permit me 2 seconds just to get set up here. Great. So good morning, everyone. And thank you, Julie, for those very kind comments. We are living in an era of transformative change. The rise of artificial intelligence, blockchain, the sharing economy, these are big ideas that are changing human existence and reshaping society as we know it. At the same time, there is a vacuum in geopolitical leadership. The politics of Brexit and America First, these are causing countries to turn inwards and away from openness and tolerance. While this is more than troubling, it is also giving Canada a moment on the world stage. Our image has never been better, and our innovation sector is receiving global recognition. Today, for the first time in my career of building companies, we're seeing the north-south brain drain flow in the opposite direction, from south to north. And experts in artificial intelligence, like Dr. Jeffrey Hinton or Dr. Yoshua Bengio, are being joined by their colleagues from the United States, top AI researchers who are relocating here because they see the momentum gathering. Now, while we can feel justifiably proud, we cannot ease back on the accelerator. We are actually in a global race. And if we cannot rapidly commercialize the breakthroughs coming from our world-class universities, we're going to slip back into that tired Canadian tradition of buying back products and services based on our own discoveries from companies that are now based outside of Canada. So I want to take a few minutes to consider one crucial question. How can Canada win? Several decades ago, I founded my first company on 3 credit cards. My best friends were Amex, MasterCard, and Visa. Back then, my other best friends wondered why I would leave the fast track at Texas Instruments in order to start my own company. I think entrepreneur was a fancy word for unemployable at the time. So today, if you're to believe the media hype, everybody wants to be an innovator. And I can see why. At points in time, it's very exciting. But here's the harsh fact. Only 1 in 1,500 companies will ever achieve the scale to actually move the needle on a world scale. That's 0.06% for those of you that are doing the math. 6 basis points. Most startups will die. And to be honest, many should. Darwin's laws of natural selection actually apply to the entrepreneurial cycle too. But you know, some do not deserve that fate. Some run out of runway before they can actually take off because They can't connect to the capital or the talent or the markets that they need, and more typically, all of the above. So in this race, scale matters. And to win, we must build clusters of innovation, clusters that connect the entire entrepreneurial supply chain. And we've heard some of these comments from the panel just now. We have to address each and every choke point on that supply chain that prevents made-in-Canada ventures from reaching their potential on a global scale. So the good news is, I believe that we're starting to do that. Look at the innovation labs and the incubators that surround world-class universities. University of Toronto, Waterloo, Calgary, Dalhousie, all the sponsors of this particular conference. UBC, McGill, and of course right here, Carleton and the University of Ottawa. Or at Mars, if you'll permit me a brief infomercial on Mars, so I can pay for my plane ticket. Mars is North America's largest urban innovation hub. By most accounts, the largest in the world. We are home to 150 high-tech companies. They employ, actually, over 6,000 innovators that walk in and out of that campus every single day. And we see more than 1,200 ventures that are working in sectors like clean tech, healthcare, finance, and work and learning. So far, our ventures have raised over $3.5 billion in capital since inception. They have generated over $1.8 billion in revenue, not pocket change. Mars succeeds because it operates at scale. We are connected to global networks of entrepreneurs and investors and academics, and we work closely with our partners, including the University of Toronto, the Vector Institute, the Center for Commercialization of Regenerative Medicine, and many, many others that I can't list in the time I've got here. Places like Mars are a magnet. They attract talent, investors, entrepreneurs, academics, researchers, with one purpose. Our North Star must be our most promising ventures, and our goal must be to help them win and win big on the world stage. So how do we create these global companies? How do we reap the social and economic goals and benefits that come along with them? I believe we've got to do three things. First, we can't create global companies simply by stoking demand at home. Let's take healthcare, for example. Making government, procurement, an innovation-friendly process is important, but our single-payer market is typically a late adopter of innovation, and it's just too small. We must help our ventures enter big, competitive global markets where the stakes are higher. To do this, we need to forge strategic partnerships in markets that are open to innovation. We must overcome our size handicap. Countries like China and India and the United States, of course, they're bigger than we are. They have a natural advantage. China alone can access over 1 billion points of data anytime they wish to drive applied research. Factor in looser privacy laws and lower regulatory barriers, and what you have is a formidable competitor in our current area of strength. So we must focus on the trillion-dollar sectors where Canada has strength, and in technologies that solve the complex problems that, quite frankly, my colleagues in Silicon Valley have not addressed. Clean technology is an obvious example. Last week, the doomsday clock moved 30 seconds closer to midnight. That leaves us 2 minutes. It's a stark reminder of potential catastrophic events due to global warming. And at the time, I was actually in a forum in San Francisco where the top 100 clean tech innovators in the world were announced. And by the way, 13 of those innovators were Canadian. And I'm proud to say 11 of the 13 were Mars Ventures. By population, Canada should have had just one on that list of 100. In fact, if you do the math, it's actually 1/2 of one company on that list. Let me tell you about one of the winners, CarbonCure, also a Mars-supported venture, an amazing company that's actually reversing greenhouse gas emissions. Here's a little-known fact. Did you know that concrete is the second most consumed substance on Earth, next only to water? I had no idea, but I found out. They're also one of the biggest emitters of greenhouse gas emissions. CarbonCure has turned the industry on its ear by taking carbon dioxide emitted from the concrete manufacturing process, injecting it back into the concrete, making a better, stronger, more endurable product, and in essence, turning the entire industry from a massive emitter of GHG into a massive consumer. This is absolutely brilliant. So these companies allow us to punch well above our weight, but we've got to move quickly. So second, there's a gap in the system that we have to address, and that's the lack of deep sources of strategic capital. All the collaboration with our great universities in order to get innovators started, that's only part of the innovation supply chain. We have to address capital in order to help them move to strong commercial success on a global stage. We must find capital that's not just invested to drive a financial return, but also drive a strategic impact. Canadian VC funds are still small, and Canadian companies raise only half as much as their United States peers. This is a serious handicap. The good news is that the numbers are moving in the right direction, with VC investment in Canada jumping 113% since 2016. But we need to increase the supply of smart money, strategically connected global sources of venture capital that can fuel company growth. With few exceptions, these funds don't usually line up behind our innovators and our entrepreneurs, but they should. Portfolio companies on these venture funds face greater long-term risk from climate change and rising healthcare costs than any other portfolio. These are the issues our innovators, our own innovators, can help to solve. We need to mobilize this money, and we need to do so on strategically game-changing technologies. So third and finally, of course, talent, what we're here to all talk about. Talent fuels the innovation economy. It is, at long last, flowing strongly towards Canada. And over 30% of job applicants to Mars ventures and tenants are now coming from the United States. So if you take a look at the new Vector Institute for Artificial Intelligence, led by our own godfather of machine learning and artificial intelligence, Dr. Jeffrey Hinton, he and the Institute have become a magnet for the most talented AI workers in the world. And that in itself has become a magnet for the most advanced technology companies in the world. This is no coincidence. The best always attract the best. It's a clear example of the power of transformative talent. But here's the thing. Smart capital, talent, companies, these all exist in a borderless world. They will flow to wherever they can find the best opportunities for success. World events have given us a once-in-a-generation opportunity to be that destination. So, yes, Canada is having a moment. But let's be clear. It's only a moment. We have a finite window to capitalize on our momentum, to convert unfair advantage into winning more than our fair share. And if we do this in the next 3 years, my proposal is that we'll create prosperity for the next 25. This is a high-stakes relay race, requiring us to pass the baton at each stage of the innovation supply chain. Mars and I, we're simply just one member on Team Canada. But I believe that by working together, exploiting our complements, we will put ourselves in a position to cross that finish line and medal in the Worlds. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian. We just have time for perhaps 2 questions. So the first one on Slido, the reverse in the flow of talent is exciting. What is driving that? And do the recent US tax changes worry you?
Does this work here? Okay, good. The reverse in the flow of talent, yes. I think talent attracts talent, and the best always attract the best. So it starts and ends right there. We have an enormous network of Canadians that are abroad right now, many of whom are coming here. And I think coming here for reasons that the panel has already discussed, and I think I also referenced here. There are geopolitical circumstances that are driving Canada as a stark contrast to maybe the politics of Brexit, the politics of America first. So I think for all those reasons, talent is coming here, but that is a necessary but insufficient condition for us to succeed on a global stage. We have to convert that by adding around it the capital and the strategic market adoption that creates global success for our companies. Otherwise, sooner or later, our moment is going to have a finite end to it, and the world will revert. And when that happens, if we haven't taken advantage of our window, we'll be back to doing what we always did, creating great discoveries. We punch way above our weight in terms of discoveries in this country. We punch way below our weight in terms of being able to capitalize on those discoveries. This is not a problem of the universities. This is a problem of how we connect the entire supply chain so that we can basically drive the innovators to where they can go.
And just as a final question, if you could put on your investor hat and talk about some of the barriers to private sector R&D investment in Canada.
Look, I think from an investor's point of view, in fact, I'm going to turn that question around just a bit, Julie. I think Canadian capital has typically been driven through an asset management lens. So Canadian capital has typically pursued a financial return. There are certain categories which really drive impact on a global stage, which can really drive Canadian long-term national advantage, which are heavily science-based. My last company was built to drive mobile game traffic, and that's great, that's fun, and I'm not here to knock that. But I'm saying that categories like clean tech and life sciences, these have enormous impacts on human life as we know it. And Canada actually has an advantage, but it requires great science. If you get the science wrong, you're dead before you can begin. This is where the connection to universities and researchers and top-class academics need to come in. I think on the capital side, capital has to start looking at strategic impact and not just chasing a financial return. I think these are both doable. It's not an either or, it's an and. And I think we have some very deep sources of global capital right here in Canada. Their portfolios are made up of companies that really, really get impacted by climate change, by aging populations living twice as long with rising healthcare costs. They are incentivized to actually drive a strategic impact and not just a financial return. If we mobilize that, I think we put Canada and Canadian innovators and this entire supply chain that we're trying to connect in a completely different position, and that gives us sustainable long-term advantage beyond just the talent unfair advantage we have, I think, for, let's say, 3 to 4 years. Thanks, Julie.